Hi, everybody. Welcome to the second season of Viral Manjas podcast. We are so excited to start off our podcast today, and we have our first episode on the travel industry. So, basically, our whole season actually will be around the travel industry, but the first one, the topic that we have chosen for this is how strategy can help drive the business in current times, especially related to travel marketing. So on that basis, we are going to start right off with a guest speaker from someone who has a background in travel marketing, especially in Pakistan. We have Mariyam Tajalli with me. Hi, Mariyam. How are you?
Hey Zara, hey Sabura, thank you so much for having me over. I'm
Hi,
doing well.
Mariam.
We are very excited to have you, Mariam. We are very happy that you are on board with us today. And guys, a little bit about Mariam. So she is an ex-Marcom specialist at Sasta Ticket. She is currently a creative strategist at Adcom Leo Burnett, and she is passionate about writing and understanding what makes the consumer tick. So for Sabura and I, that's like a strategy heaven. So we totally understand where Mariam is totally coming from. So we are very excited to have her tell us how to strategically take forward the travel marketing as of now, especially post-COVID. Sabura, over to you, and let's hear what guys have for us for this episode.
Thank you so much, Zara, for the intro. And thank you so much and welcome, Mariam, to our podcast. Thank you so much for taking out your time. We're honored to have you on our first episode as the guest speaker.
It's my pleasure.
Great. So I'll just take you guys through points that Mariam will be covering for us today, and we'll be asking her a few interesting questions. So the first part is that we would like to ask her is what is the impact of COVID-19 on this industry, travel and tourism industry, and where does she see the travel industry in next 2 years? The second part of the session is what are some ethical considerations arising at this point within this industry, obviously with respect to COVID-19. And the third and the most important part is that how strategy can help businesses grow in such challenging times. So over to you, Mariam. Let's just start.
Absolutely. So, first of all, thank you so much for having me over again. The first part of the discussion, the impact of COVID-19 on the travel industry. I think we've all been seeing how the travel industry just shut down completely in March and April following an increase in cases of COVID. Pakistan was one of the later countries to get impacted. लेकिन वर्ल्ड वाइड बंद होनी शुरू हो गई थी चीजें सो ट्रैवल को हिट लगना मार्च में स्टार्ट हो गई थी व्हेन कंट्रीज स्टार्टेड शटिंग डाउन देयर बॉर्डर्स एंड फ्लाइट्स वर बीइंग ग्राउंडेड there was a lot of confusion and lack of clarity around visa availability, country entrances, कौन सी flight उड़ रही है, कौन सी flight नहीं उड़ रही, because special flights were still on, but most flights were being grounded. So बहुत chaos था. I remember this one particular guy जो खुद he had gone to Japan. His daughter was supposed to join him from some other country, and uski flight cancel ho gayi thi. So it was just very chaotic. So families were being broken over this temporarily, and was just a difficult time for everyone involved. फिर आपकी airlines जो थी, they were struggling with refunds and vouchers because airlines थोड़ा सा cash strapped होती हैं अक्सर. And suddenly they were, all of their flights were asking for refunds because वो cancel हो गई थी या ground हो गई थी, and they didn't really have the money to pay people back. We saw businesses not only lose revenue, but hundreds of travel agencies in Pakistan alone went bankrupt. Airlines भी बहुत सारी bankrupt हो गई हैं, बहुत सारी restructure हुई हैं, and they've changed investors. So अक्सर countries में the first wave has come and gone. Cases decline हो रहे हैं काफी steadily. Pakistan has been lucky because हमारे cases बहुत steeply decline कर रहे हैं. So I think we went from somewhere around 6,500 per day in June to 500 or less cases a day in August. However, 1918 वाले influenza में और इसमें we're expecting similar patterns. So probably more waves are going to come. And it's important that businesses as well as PTDC, the tourism sector in Pakistan, are prepared for, the second wave to come and how they're going to handle that.
With contingency planning, was it always a part of the industry or it wasn't there at all? So what are your views on the contingency planning picture?
So contingency planning is the umbrella no one thinks of buying in Karachi because यहाँ बारिश नहीं होती till, there's torrential downpour and then they'll just ruin. So contingency planning की एक चीज ये कि I have a friend who works for PwC Australia, and then this is a really good time for them, because this is exactly why you should do contingency planning, because once in a lifetime events can happen once in a lifetime. पाकिस्तान के अंदर most industries don't really have contingency plans, and tourism का तो हमने देख लिया कि there wasn't a contingency plan in place. No business was prepared कि अगर इतना drastically कोई act of God होता है जो इतना drastically business को impact करता है, how are they going to tackle that? Government की तरफ से they've been trial and erroring policies to see what works and what doesn't work. So there's not much contingency planning going on. So there's a few things that businesses can do to better plan. एक तो ये कि second wave is probably a matter of time. Even if it doesn't come, it's important. But it's vital that businesses prepare for it. So in terms of financial planning and marketing planning, and all other avenues that the business have, they need to be prepared कि किस तरह टैकल करेंगे अगर सेकंड वेव आई और हमने फर्स्ट वेव की लेवल का या उससे स्टीप या उससे कम क्रैश देखा है इंडस्ट्री के अंदर. सेकेंडली, जब तक कि द सिचुएशन इज इन बिहाइंड अस इन द सेंस दैट वी हैव अ वैक्सीन और cases होना खत्म हो जाए बिल्कुल, there is a need for cutting down on resources and expenses. Anything that's not essential needs to be gotten rid of. Then they should focus on types of travel that is more COVID friendly, I would like to say. So for example, leisure पे भी अगर आप बात कर रहे हो तो maybe focus on solo couple travel instead of pushing group travel जहाँ पे 40-50 लोग एक साथ travel कर रहे होते हैं. Another thing is companies should be prepared कि even अगर for example country wide या world wide second wave ना आए, तभी small areas can still face spikes in cases, and whatever plans they had with the area, be it a hotel operating there or an airline जिनकी उधर की flights थी, they need to have plans on how they're going to cater to their customers.
Yeah, I think all of these points make sense, and because staycation to up, is the buzzword now in the travel and tourism industry. So from what I get from all of this is that there can't be any more excuses, and businesses have to have a plan B no matter what, right? So we all
Absolutely.
with different aspects of the business, either it's traveling in solo or traveling in groups, or how to manage your passengers when your flights are cancelled, and so on and so. So let's move to the second part. So Mariam, contingency planning और ये सारी चीजें तो हो गई. So कोविड का एक बहुत important part है, वो है ethical considerations. So what are your thoughts about some of the ethical considerations arising at this point with respect to brands?
Ethically, this is a very interesting and difficult time for companies, not just in the tourism sector and in travel, but generally, because there's a lot of industries suffering from COVID and a lot of industries benefiting from COVID. Both sides of the equation have to be very careful about how they talk to the consumer right now, because this is a very sensitive topic. Epidemic gives you a lot of range to integrate the brand with the product. However, the kind of integration that's happening needs to be very, sensitively dealt with. So the basic things brands don't want to do is come off as being tone deaf. कि एक जगह इतना मसला हुआ where people are losing their jobs, a lot of lives are being lost, and they're just pushing their product without much consideration to the effect the disease itself has on people's lives. A couple of examples for this is recently there was a Lysol commercial, not in Pakistan of course. The commercial was a very cheery toned commercial, and it was put out at a point where Lysol was short in the market. So I'm sure you guys can relate to जब बिल्कुल नया नया पेंडेमिक स्टार्ट हुआ था, लाइक जब लोगों को उसकी अवेयरनेस होनी शुरू हुई थी कि हाँ कोई सीरियस चीज हो रही है, तो सारे सुपरमार्केट्स में एंड स्टोर्स में आपके हैंड सैनिटाइजर जो थे दे रैन शॉर्ट. उस टाइम पे फॉर एग्जांपल आपका डेटॉल या सेफ गार्ड अगर पुश करना शुरू करे अपनी प्रोडक्ट्स को, तो पीपल विल ऑफ कोर्स टेक a bad taste out of it, because product नहीं है आपकी मार्केट में या बहुत high rates पे sell हो रही है, so it's not really a good time for a commercial, comes off as insensitive. Secondly, another example is there's Norwegian cruise liner जिसने अपने commercials चलाए थे around the same. So the Diamond Princess, if you don't know, was a cruise ship which was very drastically impacted by COVID. They were already out on the sea, and उनके पास 700 cases identify हुए थे COVID के, out of which 14 people died. So the Norwegian cruise liner came out with a commercial which talked about feel free to feel more. Again, really insensitive in a time like this. So brands should go out of their way to make sure, travel or otherwise, that they are coming up with ideas which are helpful and not disrespectful to the situation people are finding themselves in.
True, I think it's very important for brands कि ऐसी situation में हम आपके साथ हैं वाली approach शायद ज़्यादा बेहतर होगी as compared to just buy our product and no matter what is happening in the world.
Absolutely.
Brings us to our next point, I think, because अगर वो point आपका set है तो फिर आप कभी भी जो है ना इस तरह की गलत communication नहीं करोगे, which again is the core, I think, of everything, which is your strategy. So this is something that we would like you to shed some light on, that how strategy can help businesses grow and communicate in such challenging times. Because if your strategy is right, then brands wouldn't do any such mistakes, like for example maybe the Norwegian cruise did.
Okay, absolutely. So just as a precursor, the situation around COVID, it's not behind us definitely. We're still going through it, and brands are learning as they go through it. The situation is a little unclear, so this needs to be understood that trial and error करना पड़ेगा. इसके अलावा कुछ है नहीं. Situation जैसे जैसे change होती है, real time में उसको respond करना है, and everything that comes with it. So there's three basic things that I feel can be done to help a brand in this situation, especially if the brand is related to travel. The first thing is there's a lot of fear and insecurity in the travel community, since visa applications are up in the air. कौन से countries accept कर रहे हैं visa, कौन से countries visa application अभी accept कर रहे हैं, कौन से नहीं कर रहे, किनका isolation कितना लंबा है, and stuff like that. So with the consumer being disoriented in terms of information, a good travel brand would take the time and make the effort to make sure they're finding good information and sharing it with the customer, so the customer knows what they're doing. So travelers जो भी हैं उनके पास information जो है वो सही आ रही है और आपके पास से आ रही है, so it builds a rapport which will pay off in the future. आपकी brand authority establish हो रही है, reliability establish हो रही है. The second thing would be to make sure that consumer safety is at the heart of all things travel right now. So even though you have to push your product because you as a business, that's what you do, you need to make sure that no one's safety is being compromised. आप लोगों को किसी ऐसे एरिया में नहीं भेजने अलाउ कर रहे हो जो क्वेश्चनेबल है in terms of COVID, yeah, you're not sending groups of people without screening them and their health, which is why we see very extensive tests happening at the airport and even at shop entrances. To be honest, safety needs to be at the heart of travel in the near future. So businesses need to make sure कि वो लोगों को जहाँ भेज रहे हैं वो जगह safe है from COVID. जो लोग जा रहे हैं they've been tested and screened. सारे SOPs जो गवर्नमेंट ने या और अथॉरिटीज ने इन प्लेस पुट करे हैं वो सारे फॉलो हो रहे हैं, because as a brand you don't want yourself to be associated with a new COVID cluster or something of the sort. That's not going to do you any favors. And thirdly, I've said this before and I'll emphasize this again, contingency planning, especially in a situation where the probability of crisis happening is a lot higher than it regularly is. Contingency planning is really important. Travel brands don't really have a lot of excuses anymore when it comes to not handling complaints or refunds or things like that well, because it's already happened in March, April and May. So they really need to be on their toes if and when it happens again, because the consumer will not give them too many chances. So I think these are some basic things that can be used to look at the future and better plan in terms of strategy, especially in communication.
So communication is the key, and I think if your strategy is right, then everything that is going to follow will eventually fall in place, from your contingency planning to being sensitive to winning brownie points with customers, but at the same time being politically correct and to be better able to manage crisis. So this is something that
yeah, absolutely,
from the overall discussion. Interesting points and some really good information. Thank you so much, Mariyam, for taking out time for us, for sharing with us your expertise and your experience and your thoughts about the industry.
You're very welcome. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mariyam. Thank you, Zara. And over to you, Zara, now.
Wow, I really had a really good time learning so much about travel marketing, especially at these times when we look at from our local point of view. So there is still a more that can be done. Just opening the doors towards traveling is not just the answer, because especially there was this one point that Mariam raised was about the carelessness cannot be an option, especially even in these times. And I have noticed that internationally there's a lot of communication that is going on about setting yourself free from a cage of the lockdown, which is okay, I guess, if you are a brand that is other than traveling. But if traveling businesses do is saying that is a bit careless, so that there is some responsibility that a brand needs to take, and that responsibility can be communicated in various manners, and that's where Mariam really helped us out as well. Thank you so much. So guys, we had such a good time having Mariam on board with us, and hope you learned something out of it. And we have a very exciting episode 2 coming out. We have a guest speaker for it too, and hope you guys stay tuned for that as well. See you guys next time. Bye.